It was early morning at a busy airport and people were rushing to board their flights. Among them was Michelle Thompson, a confident and successful black woman in her late 40s. She had built an entire business empire from scratch. Her company, Glow Naturals, made eco-friendly skincare products that were loved by customers all over the world. But today, Michelle wasn't flying as the boss. Instead, she dressed casually, in jeans, a cozy sweater, and sneakers, hoping to enjoy a quiet trip without drawing attention to herself. Michelle reached Gate 17, where passengers were lining up to board the plane headed to New York. As she waited, she scrolled through her phone, checking emails and messages. When it was finally her turn to step onto the aircraft, she greeted the flight attendant with a polite smile before finding her assigned seat near the window. Settling into her spot, she sighed softly, grateful for this rare moment of peace. Running a global business kept her constantly on the go, so these little breaks meant everything to her. As more passengers boarded, a young family took their seats right next to Michelle. A toddler sat beside his parents, bouncing excitedly in his seat while clutching a small toy airplane. His giggles filled the air, bringing a smile to Michelle's face. She leaned over slightly and said kindly to the mother, "He's adorable. I'm sure he'll love this flight." The mom chuckled nervously, but thanked her, clearly trying to keep her energetic child under control. For a while, everything seemed normal. Passengers chatted quietly. Flight attendants prepared the cabin and the hum of engines grew louder outside. Then, something shifted. Another passenger seated nearby, a middle-aged man wearing a suit, started complaining loudly about the noise the toddler was making. "Can someone please do something?" he snapped, glaring at the family. The father of the child tried to calm his son down, whispering softly and handing him a coloring book. But the boy, too excited to sit still, continued squirming and laughing. Michelle noticed the tension rising. She could see the stress on the parents' faces as they struggled to manage both their child and the complaints coming from around them. Wanting to help, she turned toward the irritated man and said gently, "It's just a short flight, sir. Kids will be kids, you know." Her tone was calm and friendly, meant to ease the situation rather than escalate it, but her words didn't have the effect she'd hoped for. The man shot back sharply, "I paid good money for my ticket and I expect some respect." His raised voice caught the attention of others nearby, including the flight attendants. One of them hurried over to assess the commotion. Before anyone could explain what was happening, the attendant zeroed in on Michelle. "Ma'am, we've received reports that you're being disruptive," the attendant said firmly, standing beside Michelle's seat. Michelle blinked in surprise, taken aback by the accusation. "Disruptive? Me?" she asked, pointing to herself. "All I did was try to smooth things out." The attendant didn't seem convinced. "Sir," she gestured toward the complaining man, "says you're causing trouble. We need you to lower your voice or move to another part of the plane." Michelle felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment and frustration. How could this simple act of kindness be twisted into something negative? She glanced around at the other passengers, hoping someone would speak up in her defense. Some looked sympathetic, nodding subtly, but no one intervened directly. Others avoided eye contact altogether, unwilling to get involved. Determined to clear her name, Michelle explained again, patiently and respectfully, that she hadn't done anything wrong. "I was only trying to help," she insisted. But the more she spoke, the angrier the original complainer became. He crossed his arms and muttered under his breath, "This is ridiculous." The argument between Michelle, the complaining passenger, and the flight attendants grew louder. More staff members arrived, adding fuel to the fire. Eventually, the head flight attendant stepped in, her expression stern. "Ma'am, if you don't comply, we may have to remove you from the flight," she warned. Michelle couldn't believe what she was hearing. Removed her for simply trying to mediate a minor disagreement? She felt a mix of emotions, anger, disbelief, and sadness, but above all, she felt singled out. Was this really happening because of her race? She had faced prejudice before, but never like this. Not in such a public setting. With no choice left, Michelle stood up slowly, gathering her bag and personal items. She locked eyes with the flight attendant and said firmly, "You're making a big mistake. I hope you realize that." Then, without another word, she walked off the plane, her head held high despite the weight of humiliation pressing down on her shoulders. As she stepped onto the jet bridge, Michelle paused for a moment, watching the door close behind her. Inside, the plane was preparing to depart, leaving her behind. She exhaled deeply, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside her. What had started as a routine travel day had turned into a nightmare. Little did she know, however, that this incident was far from over, and it would lead to consequences none of them could have anticipated. After Michelle stepped off the plane, the atmosphere inside the cabin remained tense. Passengers whispered to each other, trying to piece together what had just happened. Some sympathized with Michelle, thinking she had been unfairly treated, while others sided with the flight attendants, believing that maintaining order on the plane was more important than anything else. The toddler who had started it all was now quietly coloring in his book, completely unaware of the chaos he had unintentionally caused. The complaining man, who had initially sparked the conflict, sat back in his seat, arms crossed, looking, satisfied that his complaint had led to action. But even he couldn't ignore the unease lingering in the air. He glanced around nervously, sensing that not everyone agreed with how things had played out. Meanwhile, the young family tried their best to blend into the background, clearly embarrassed by the entire ordeal. They exchanged worried looks, wondering if they should have spoken up in Michelle's defense. Back on the jet bridge, Michelle stood frozen for a moment, replaying the events in her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play here. Was it because she was black? Had her tone or demeanor been misinterpreted simply because of the color of her skin? These questions swirled in her head as she clenched her fist tightly, gripping the strap of her bag. For years, Michelle had faced subtle forms of discrimination in professional settings, but this felt personal. This wasn't a boardroom or a business meeting. It was an airplane, a place where people from all walks of life came together temporarily, or so she thought. As Michelle made her way back to the terminal, she spotted a gate agent standing nearby. Still fuming, she approached him and demanded answers. "Can you explain why I was kicked off my flight?" she asked sharply. The agent, caught off guard by her intensity, stammered as he pulled up her reservation on his screen. "Ma'am, according to our records, there were reports of disruptive behavior," he said hesitantly, "but we'll need to review the details further." Michelle shook her head in disbelief. "Disruptive behavior? I was sitting quietly until someone decided to make a scene over a child laughing, and then I'm the one labeled as disruptive?" Her voice rose slightly, drawing the attention of nearby travelers. The agent quickly assured her that the airline would investigate and offered to rebook her on the next available flight. Michelle reluctantly accepted, though she knew this wasn't the end of the matter. Inside the plane, the situation hadn't improved. Passengers continued murmuring among themselves, speculating about Michelle's removal. One woman leaned over to her seatmate and whispered, "Did you see her? She didn't seem like she was causing trouble. That poor lady got railroaded." Her companion nodded in agreement, adding, "It's always the same story, isn't it?" People judge based on appearances. The tension escalated when another passenger, a middle-aged woman wearing glasses, decided to speak up. Standing up partially in her seat, she addressed the flight attendants loudly. "Excuse me, but can someone tell us why that woman was removed? From what I saw, she was just trying to help." The flight attendants exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to respond. Finally, the head attendant stepped forward, holding up her hands in a gesture meant to calm everyone down. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated," she announced firmly. "We are investigating the incident and safety is our top priority. If necessary, we will delay departure until the issue is resolved." Her words did little to ease the growing unrest. Some passengers began pulling out their phones, snapping photos or recording videos of the commotion. Within minutes, snippets of the drama appeared online, sparking immediate reactions from viewers. Meanwhile, Captain James Carter, the pilot of the flight, was informed of the escalating situation during his final pre-flight checks. Known for his calm demeanor and fairness, James prided himself on ensuring smooth journeys for his passengers. When the lead flight attendant briefed him on Michelle's removal, he listened carefully, furrowing his brow as he processed the details. Something about the story didn't add up. Why would someone be removed for trying to mediate a minor disagreement? Curiosity piqued, James requested access to Michelle's booking information. As soon as her name popped up on the screen, his eyes widened in recognition. Michelle Thompson, the founder and CEO of Glow Naturals. James had heard of her company before. It was one of the most innovative brands in the eco-friendly skincare industry. In fact, Glow Naturals had recently partnered with the airline to sponsor its new initiative promoting sustainable travel practices. The irony struck him hard. Here they were, removing a key partner from the flight over a misunderstanding. Realizing the gravity of the situation, James wasted no time. He immediately contacted ground control and requested an update on Michelle's status. "Find Ms. Thompson and bring her back to the gate," he instructed firmly. Ground staff scrambled to locate her, eventually finding her pacing near the boarding area, still visibly upset. When approached by an airline representative, Michelle assumed it was to discuss compensation for the inconvenience. Instead, she was escorted directly to the cockpit, where Captain Carter awaited her with an apologetic smile. "Ms. Thompson, I owe you an explanation and an apology," James began, extending his hand. Michelle hesitated for a brief moment before shaking it, unsure of what to expect. Over the next few minutes, the pilot explained how the misunderstanding had unfolded and admitted that the crew had acted prematurely. He also revealed that he recognized her name from recent partnership discussions between the airline and Glow Naturals. Michelle listened intently, her anger slowly giving way to astonishment. While she appreciated the acknowledgement, she couldn't ignore the irony of the situation. Here she was, kicked off a plane operated by a company she was helping to make greener. Sensing her skepticism, James assured her that steps would be taken to prevent similar incidents in the future. To show goodwill, he personally invited her to join him in the cockpit for the remainder of the flight, a rare privilege extended to very few passengers. Though still processing the whirlwind of events, Michelle accepted the invitation. As the plane taxied down the runway, she found herself seated beside Captain Carter, gazing out at the tarmac through the cockpit windows. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to smile. But little did she know, the real impact of this experience was only beginning to unfold. As Michelle sat in the cockpit of the plane, her mind raced with conflicting emotions. She wasn't sure whether to feel vindicated or frustrated. On one hand, she was relieved that someone, finally, had recognized the injustice she had faced. On the other hand, the entire ordeal left her questioning how such a misunderstanding could happen in the first place. Captain James Carter noticed her quiet demeanor and decided to break the silence. "Ms. Thompson," he began gently, "I truly am sorry for what happened. This kind of situation shouldn't occur on any flight, especially not when you're doing something as simple as helping others." His tone was sincere, and his words carried weight. Michelle nodded slowly, still processing everything. Though grateful for his apology, part of her wanted answers, real, concrete explanations for why she had been singled out. James continued, explaining that after reviewing the details, he realized the flight attendants had acted too hastily. "We train our staff to handle conflicts professionally," he said, "but sometimes things escalate without proper communication. I promise you, we'll address this internally to ensure it doesn't happen again." He paused briefly before adding, "And just so you know, your name caught my attention because of Glow Naturals. We're proud to partner with your company. It's making a real difference." Michelle couldn't help but let out a small laugh at the irony. "So I get kicked off a plane operated by a company I'm working with? That's quite the twist," she remarked dryly. Her voice softened slightly as she added, "But thank you for stepping in. It means a lot." The two spent the next few minutes chatting about Glow Naturals' initiatives and the airline's efforts to promote sustainability. James shared how inspired he was by Michelle's vision of creating eco-friendly products that didn't compromise quality. Michelle in turn appreciated his genuine interest. For the first time since boarding the flight earlier that day, she felt seen, not as a problem passenger, but as a human being with ideas worth listening to. As the conversation unfolded, James made a bold decision. Turning to Michelle, he said, "You've already experienced enough inconvenience today. How about we turn this around? Let me personally escort you back to your seat once we're airborne, and if anyone gives you trouble, they'll answer directly to me." His offer was unexpected, yet deeply meaningful. Michelle hesitated for only a second before agreeing. She knew this gesture wasn't just about her. It was about setting an example for everyone else involved. When the plane finally lifted off the ground, Michelle returned to her original seat near the window. Passengers glanced curiously as she walked past, accompanied by none other than the pilot himself. Some recognized him immediately. Others whispered among themselves, speculating about what was going on. James stopped briefly to address the cabin over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice calm but commanding. "We apologize for the delay earlier due to a misunderstanding. Rest assured, every effort is being made to ensure a safe and comfortable journey for all of you." His words were met with nods of approval from several passengers, while others exchanged knowing glances. Michelle settled back into her seat, feeling a mix of relief and empowerment. The young family sitting beside her smiled warmly, clearly, grateful for her earlier attempt to mediate their situation. Even the complaining man, who had sparked the entire conflict, kept quiet, avoiding eye contact altogether. Throughout the flight, Michelle reflected on the events that had transpired. She thought about the initial confrontation, the unfair accusations, and the eventual intervention by Captain Carter. Each moment replayed in her mind like scenes from a movie, but instead of dwelling solely on the negative aspects, she focused on the lessons she could take away from the experience. One thing became clear: this incident wasn't just about her. It highlighted broader issues of bias, miscommunication, and accountability within institutions like airlines. By the time the plane began its descent into New York, Michelle had formulated a plan. This wouldn't be swept under the rug as a minor inconvenience. No, she intended to use her platform to spark meaningful conversations about systemic biases and the importance of treating people with dignity, regardless of their race or background. As the wheels touched down on the runway, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, one that would guide her actions in the days and weeks ahead. Once the plane came to a stop and passengers began disembarking, Michelle lingered for a moment to thank Captain Carter once more. "You didn't have to do what you did," she told him earnestly, "but I appreciate it more than you know." James smiled warmly, shaking her hand firmly. "It's the least I could do. Safe travels, Ms. Thompson, and keep doing the incredible work you're doing." With that, Michelle stepped off the plane, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did she know the story of her removal and subsequent reinstatement was already spreading far beyond the confines of the airport. A fellow passenger, who had recorded part of the confrontation, uploaded the video online, sparking heated debates across social media platforms. Comments poured in from all sides, with many praising Michelle for handling the situation with grace, and others criticizing the airline for its mishandling of the conflict. Back at the airline's headquarters, executives scrambled to respond to the growing backlash. They issued a formal statement apologizing for the incident and promising to implement sensitivity training for all employees. Additionally, they offered Michelle lifetime VIP status, including complimentary upgrades and access to exclusive lounges. While Michelle appreciated the gesture, she knew there was more work to be done. She used the opportunity to advocate for greater diversity and inclusion within the travel industry, urging companies to prioritize empathy and understanding in every interaction. In the weeks that followed, Michelle became a symbol of resilience and determination. Her story resonated with countless individuals who had faced similar experiences of discrimination. Inspired by her courage, many shared their own stories online, amplifying calls for change. For Michelle, the incident served as a catalyst for using her influence to drive positive transformation, not just in the airline industry but in society as a whole. The aftermath of Michelle's experience on the plane quickly spiraled into something far bigger than anyone could have anticipated. Within hours of landing in New York, snippets of the confrontation had gone viral online. A fellow passenger, armed with a smartphone, had recorded part of the incident and uploaded it to social media. The video showed Michelle being escorted off the plane, her calm yet frustrated demeanor contrasting sharply with the tense atmosphere inside the cabin. It didn't take long for the clip to gain traction, sparking heated debates across platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Comments flooded in from all corners of the internet. Some viewers praised Michelle for maintaining her composure despite the injustice she faced. "She handled this with so much grace," one user wrote. "It's disgusting how people are treated differently based on their race." Others were quick to criticize the airline, calling out its staff for mishandling the situation. "This is why we need better training for flight attendants," another commenter added. "They should focus on de-escalation, not escalation." But not everyone sided with Michelle. A vocal minority accused her of overreacting or exaggerating the issue. If she was really that innocent, why did they remove her? One skeptical viewer questioned. These opposing viewpoints fueled intense discussions about racial bias, customer service standards, and accountability within the aviation industry. For every supportive comment, there seemed to be a dismissive rebuttal, and vice versa. Amidst the chaos, Michelle found herself at the center of a media storm. Journalists reached out to her for interviews, eager to hear her side of the story. At first she hesitated. After everything she'd been through, the last thing she wanted was more attention. But then she realized that staying silent wouldn't solve anything. If anything, it would allow the same biases and misunderstandings to persist unchecked. With a deep breath, she decided to step forward, not just as Michelle Thompson, the businesswoman, but as someone who could shine a light on larger systemic issues. Her first interview aired on a popular morning news show. Sitting across from the host, Michelle recounted the events of that day in detail. She spoke candidly about how she felt singled out and humiliated, emphasizing that her actions had been rooted in kindness rather than disruption. "I wasn't trying to cause trouble," she explained. "I was simply trying to help a family navigate a difficult moment. Instead, I became the problem because someone couldn't tolerate a child laughing." When asked if she believed her race played a role in the incident, Michelle didn't shy away from answering honestly. "As a black woman, I've faced discrimination before," she admitted. "Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's blatant. In this case, I can't say for sure what motivated those decisions, but I do know that my skin color has often made me a target in professional and public spaces. This experience reminded me that no matter how successful you become, certain biases still exist." Her words resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom shared similar stories of prejudice. Social media lit up once again, this time with hashtags like #Stand with Michelle and #End Racial Bias trending worldwide. People began sharing personal anecdotes about times they had been unfairly treated due to their race, gender, or socioeconomic status. What started as an isolated incident aboard a single flight had morphed into a global conversation about equality and justice. Meanwhile, the airline scrambled to respond to the growing backlash. Executives issued a formal apology, acknowledging the error and pledging to implement sensitivity training for all employees. They also announced plans to review their policies regarding passenger removals, ensuring that such decisions were made fairly and consistently moving forward. To further demonstrate their commitment to change, they offered Michelle lifetime VIP status, including complimentary upgrades, access to exclusive lounges, and invitations to high-profile events hosted by the company. While Michelle appreciated these gestures, she knew they weren't enough. During subsequent interviews, she challenged the airline and other companies to go beyond surface-level solutions. "An apology is nice, but actions speak louder than words," she said during one talk show appearance. "We need real, tangible changes that address the root causes of these problems. That means hiring diverse leadership teams, listening to marginalized voices, and holding people accountable when they fail to treat others with respect." Her advocacy extended beyond the airline industry. Inspired by the overwhelming response to her story, Michelle launched a new initiative called Lift Every Voice. Through this program, she partnered with organizations focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, providing resources and mentorship to underrepresented entrepreneurs. She also collaborated with schools and community centers to host workshops aimed at fostering empathy and understanding among young people. One of the most impactful partnerships Michelle formed was with the airline itself. Together, they created a series of educational seminars designed to train employees on recognizing and addressing unconscious bias. These workshops featured guest speakers, interactive exercises, and real-life case studies, including Michelle's own experience. Pilots, flight attendants, gate agents, and ground staff participated in the sessions, gaining valuable insights into how small actions, or inactions, could have profound consequences. Months later, Michelle returned to the same airline, not as a passenger but as a keynote speaker at their annual leadership conference. Standing on stage before hundreds of employees, she shared her journey, from building Glow Naturals to navigating the challenges of systemic bias. Her speech was both inspiring and thought-provoking, encouraging attendees to reflect on their roles in creating a more inclusive environment. Every interaction matters, she told the audience. Whether you're serving coffee, checking luggage, or piloting a plane, you have the power to make someone feel seen, heard, and valued. Don't underestimate the impact of a kind word or a thoughtful gesture. And remember, when mistakes happen, and they will, it's how you respond that defines your character. By the end of her presentation, the room erupted in applause. Many attendees rose to their feet, moved by her message. Tears streamed down some faces, while others scribbled notes, vowing to carry her lessons into their daily work. For Michelle, this moment marked the culmination of a long and challenging journey. What had begun as a humiliating ordeal had transformed into an opportunity to drive meaningful change, not just within one company but across an entire industry. As she stepped off the stage, Michelle took a moment to breathe deeply, feeling a mix of emotions. She was proud of how far she had come, yet aware that there was still much work to be done. But one thing was certain: she refused to let adversity define her. Instead, she chose to rise above it, using her voice and influence to lift others along the way. And in doing so, she proved that even in moments of darkness, there is always a chance to shine brighter than ever before. The impact of Michelle's experience continued to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond the confines of that single flight. Her story became a symbol of resilience and advocacy, inspiring countless individuals to speak up about their own encounters with bias and discrimination. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like #Stand with Michelle and #End Racial Bias, creating spaces where people could share their truths without fear of judgment. For many, Michelle's courage gave them the strength to confront injustices they had long kept silent about. One such individual was a young woman named Jasmine, who worked as a flight attendant for a different airline. After seeing Michelle's interview, Jasmine decided to post her own story online. "I've been in this industry for 5 years," she wrote, "and I've seen firsthand how passengers are treated differently based on their race, accent, or appearance. It breaks my heart every time, but I never knew how to address it until now." Her post went viral, sparking discussions among aviation professionals about the need for systemic change within the industry. Inspired by these conversations, Michelle took her advocacy to new heights. She partnered with Jasmine and several other flight attendants to create a coalition called Skyward Voices. This group aimed to amplify the experiences of frontline workers and passengers alike, pushing for reforms that prioritized fairness and inclusivity. Together, they drafted petitions, organized virtual town halls, and even lobbied lawmakers to introduce legislation addressing racial profiling in public transportation. Meanwhile, the airline responsible for Michelle's removal faced mounting pressure from both customers and employees to deliver on its promises. Executives launched an internal review committee tasked with identifying areas of improvement across all levels of operation. They also implemented anonymous reporting systems, allowing staff and passengers to flag incidents of bias or misconduct without fear of retaliation. These measures were met with cautious optimism. While some praised the company's efforts, others remained skeptical, insisting that real change would require consistent action over time. To demonstrate transparency, the airline invited Michelle to serve as an external advisor on diversity and inclusion initiatives. At first, she hesitated, unsure if she could trust the organization after what had happened. But ultimately, she accepted the role, viewing it as an opportunity to hold them accountable while guiding meaningful progress. Over the following months, she attended board meetings, reviewed policy drafts, and provided feedback on training programs. Her presence ensured that decisions weren't made behind closed doors but rather with input from those directly affected by them. As word of Michelle's involvement spread, other companies began reaching out to her for guidance. Tech startups, retail chains, and hospitality brands sought her expertise on fostering inclusive cultures within their organizations. Though flattered by the attention, Michelle remained selective about the partnerships she pursued. She only collaborated with businesses genuinely committed to enacting lasting change, not those seeking quick fixes or PR boosts. Back at Glow Naturals, Michelle channeled her renewed energy into expanding the brand's mission. The company launched a scholarship fund for underrepresented entrepreneurs, offering financial support and mentorship to help them turn their ideas into reality. Recipients hailed from diverse backgrounds: Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, LGBTQ+, and more, each bringing unique perspectives to industries often dominated by homogeneity. Through this initiative, Michelle hoped to cultivate a new generation of leaders unafraid to challenge the status quo. In addition to supporting aspiring entrepreneurs, Michelle also expanded Glow Naturals' sustainability efforts. Recognizing the interconnectedness of social and environmental justice, she introduced eco-friendly packaging options and partnered with nonprofits focused on combating climate change. Employees participated in volunteer days, planting trees and cleaning up local communities. Customers responded enthusiastically, praising the brand for aligning its values with tangible actions. Despite her growing influence, Michelle never lost sight of the personal lessons she had learned throughout her journey. She often reflected on the day she was removed from the plane, remembering the anger, frustration, and eventual empowerment she had felt. Those emotions reminded her of the importance of staying grounded, no matter how much success she achieved. In interviews, she frequently emphasized the value of humility and perseverance. Adversity is inevitable, she told audiences during speaking engagements. But it's not about avoiding challenges, it's about finding ways to grow through them. Her message resonated deeply, earning her invitations to prestigious events around the world. From TED Talks to global summits, Michelle shared her insights with leaders from various fields, challenging them to rethink outdated practices and embrace innovation. Each speech reinforced her belief that true progress required collaboration, not competition, and that everyone had a role to play in building a better future. Even as her schedule grew busier, Michelle made time for moments of reflection. She started journaling regularly, documenting her thoughts and experiences as a way to process everything she had been through. Writing became a form of therapy, helping her stay connected to her inner self amidst the whirlwind of external demands. On quiet evenings, she would sit by the window of her apartment, penning entries that ranged from heartfelt gratitude to raw vulnerability. These pages served as reminders of how far she had come and how much farther she hoped to go. By the end of the year, Michelle's story had evolved into something greater than she could have imagined. What began as a humiliating ordeal aboard a plane had transformed into a movement championing equality, empathy, and accountability. People from all walks of life looked to her as a beacon of hope, proof that adversity could be turned into opportunity with enough determination and grace. And though challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, Michelle faced them with unwavering resolve, knowing that her voice and her actions could continue to make a difference. For Michelle Thompson, this wasn't just a new chapter in her life, it was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of standing up for what's right, and the enduring belief that change, however slow, was always possible. As the months rolled by, Michelle Thompson's influence continued to grow, shaping not just industries but also lives. Her story had transcended its origins, a single incident on a plane, and evolved into a powerful force for good. The ripple effects of her advocacy reached far and wide, inspiring individuals and organizations to take meaningful steps toward inclusivity, empathy, and accountability. For Michelle, this was more than personal vindication. It was about leaving behind a legacy that would endure long after she was gone. One of the most significant milestones came when Glow Naturals announced a groundbreaking partnership with a major international airline. This wasn't just any collaboration. It was a joint initiative aimed at revolutionizing the travel industry through sustainability and diversity. Under the program, Fly Green, passengers could earn rewards for choosing eco-friendly options during their journeys, such as using reusable water bottles or opting out of single-use plastics. Additionally, the airline pledged to allocate a portion of ticket sales to fund scholarships for underrepresented students pursuing careers in aviation. The launch event for Fly Green took place at a sleek convention center in New York City, attended by hundreds of industry leaders, influencers, and media representatives. Michelle stood confidently at the podium, dressed in a tailored emerald green suit that matched her brand's signature color. As she addressed the crowd, her voice carried both authority and warmth. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," she said, her eyes scanning the room. "An era where profit doesn't come at the expense of people or the planet. Together, we can create a world where everyone feels safe, respected, and valued, whether they're boarding a plane, starting a business, or simply living their truth." Her words received a standing ovation, underscoring the profound impact she had made. But what truly struck attendees was how authentic Michelle remained despite her skyrocketing success. She hadn't let fame change her. Instead, she used it as a tool to amplify others' voices. Throughout the event, she introduced several scholarship recipients who shared their dreams of becoming pilots, engineers, and flight attendants. Their stories were raw and heartfelt, reminding everyone present of why this work mattered so deeply. Beyond the corporate sphere, Michelle's efforts extended into grassroots movements. She became a mentor to young entrepreneurs from marginalized communities, offering guidance and resources to help them navigate the challenges of building businesses in hostile environments. One beneficiary of her mentorship was a young man named Marcus, who grew up in a low-income neighborhood plagued by violence and systemic neglect. With Michelle's support, Marcus launched a tech startup focused on developing affordable educational tools for underserved schools. Within 2 years, his company secured funding from venture capitalists and began expanding its reach globally. Marcus often credited Michelle for believing in him when no one else did. "She didn't just give me money or advice," he once said in an interview. "She showed me that my voice matters, that I have the power to rewrite my story, no matter where I come from." Stories like Marcus's reinforced Michelle's belief in the importance of representation and opportunity. By uplifting others, she ensured that her mission would continue even if she stepped back someday. Back home, Michelle found joy in simpler pleasures. Despite her demanding schedule, she carved out time for family, friends, and self-care. Weekends were reserved for hiking trips with her teenage niece, lazy brunches with close friends, and quiet evenings spent painting or reading novels. These moments grounded her, reminding her of the humanity at the heart of all her work. On particularly stressful days, she turned to journaling, pouring her thoughts onto paper as a way to process emotions and refocus her energy. In early spring, Michelle received an unexpected invitation that filled her with pride and nostalgia. The airline responsible for removing her from the flight asked her to deliver the keynote address at their annual leadership conference. It was a full-circle moment, one that highlighted how far both parties had come since that fateful day. When Michelle walked onto the stage, the audience erupted in applause, many rising to their feet in admiration. Looking out at the sea of faces, flight attendants, pilots, executives, and ground staff, she felt a surge of gratitude. 3 years ago, she began, her tone reflective yet firm. "I stood where you are now, feeling hurt, angry and misunderstood. Today I stand here as proof that change is possible, not because I'm special, but because each of you chose to listen, learn, and act. She went on to share specific examples of progress within the airline, from improved customer service, protocols to increased diversity among senior leadership. Her praise was genuine, acknowledging the hard work and dedication that had brought them to this point. But Michelle didn't shy away from addressing lingering challenges. "We've made strides, yes, but our journey isn't over," she reminded the audience. "Prejudice doesn't disappear overnight. It takes constant vigilance, open dialogue, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. So I urge you to keep pushing forward, not just for yourselves, but for every passenger who entrusts you with their safety and dignity." By the end of her speech, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Many attendees approached Michelle afterward, thanking her for her honesty and encouragement. Some shared their own struggles with bias, while others expressed renewed commitment to fostering inclusivity in their roles. For Michelle, these interactions reaffirmed her belief in the power of storytelling to bridge divides and inspire action. As the year drew to a close, Michelle reflected on everything she had accomplished and everything still left to do. She recognized that her fight against systemic biases was far from finished, but she also celebrated the victories along the way. From viral videos sparking global conversations to partnerships transforming entire industries, her journey had proven that even the smallest acts of kindness could ignite monumental change. On New Year's Eve, Michelle sat alone on her balcony, sipping hot cocoa as fireworks lit up the night sky. She thought about the young family on the plane, the toddler whose laughter had unknowingly sparked a chain reaction. She wondered what they were doing now, whether they realized how much their brief encounter had shaped her life. Somewhere deep inside, she hoped they knew that their presence had mattered, that their humanity had touched hers in ways neither of them could have predicted. With a contented sigh, Michelle leaned back in her chair, letting the cool breeze wash over her. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had done everything in her power to leave the world better than she found it. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she faced it with courage and optimism. After all, adversity had taught her one invaluable lesson. Sometimes the greatest opportunities arise from the darkest moments. And so Michelle Thompson looked toward the future, not as someone defined by her past, but as a woman determined to shape a brighter tomorrow. Her legacy was written not in grand gestures, but in the countless lives she had touched, the barriers she had broken, and the hope she had inspired. In a world often divided by fear and misunderstanding, Michelle stood as a testament to the enduring power of resilience, compassion, and unwavering belief in the possibility of change.